You've said it before. Maybe at a dinner table. Maybe doubled over with a friend, tears streaming down your face. Stop, I'm going to die. It's just a thing people say when something is unbearably funny. Your stomach hurts. You can barely breathe between gasps. And then it passes. You wipe your eyes, you catch your breath, you move on with your day. But for a small number of people across history, it didn't pass. The joke actually did kill them. And the real answer behind why is far stranger than the punchline that started it. Start with the body. Not the joke. The body. When you laugh hard, you're not just making a sound. You're performing a violent, repetitive act of breathing. Your diaphragm contracts again and again. Your chest muscles seize up. Air gets forced out of your lungs in short, sharp bursts, faster than normal breathing allows. For a few seconds, you're barely taking new air in at all. Your body is too busy expelling it. That's why people say they can't breathe when they're laughing. Because for a moment, they actually can't. Doctors have a name for what happens next, in rare cases. It's called laughter-induced syncope. Syncope just means fainting. And the mechanism is almost identical to something many people have experienced after a bad coughing fit. When you cough or laugh forcefully and repeatedly, pressure builds up inside your chest cavity. That pressure pushes against the large veins that carry blood back to your heart. Less blood returns to the heart. The heart has less to pump out. Blood pressure drops. And your brain, starved of its normal blood flow for just a moment, simply switches off. You faint. Mid-laugh. For most people, that's the whole story. A strange, funny anecdote about the time they passed out laughing at a wedding. The blood returns. The brain wakes back up. Nothing is damaged. You sit there a little dazed, your friends laughing even harder now because you fainted mid-joke, and within a minute you're fine. But for a much smaller number of people, ones with an undiagnosed weak spot in a blood vessel, or an existing heart arrhythmia, or severe asthma, that same chest pressure can be the difference between a funny story and a fatal one. A laughing fit can trigger a cardiac arrhythmia in someone with an unstable heart rhythm, throwing the heart's electrical signal off just enough that it never resets on its own. It can rupture an aneurysm that was already sitting there, undetected, a thin bulge in an artery wall that had been quietly growing for years, waiting for exactly the wrong kind of pressure spike. And it can trigger a severe asthma attack if someone simply cannot catch their breath in time between waves of laughing, their airways tightening at the worst possible moment. None of these people died because something was funny. They died because their body had a hidden weakness, and laughter happened to be the trigger that found it. The joke was never the real cause. It was just the spark. So yes. In rare, specific, medically documented cases, people really have died laughing. Not from humor itself, but from what humor does to a body that was already one push away from failing. Here's where it gets interesting, though. Because this isn't a modern phenomenon people just started noticing once doctors had the language for it. Humans have been telling stories about death by laughter for thousands of years. The most famous case comes from ancient Greece. The Stoic philosopher Chrysippus of Soli was, according to the accounts that survived him, sitting and watching a donkey eat figs. The donkey, apparently, looked utterly ridiculous doing it. Chrysippus reportedly laughed so hard and so long that he died on the spot. Now, you should hold that story a little loosely. It comes from second-hand accounts written long after his death, the kind of detail ancient biographers love to attach to philosophers for dramatic, almost poetic effect. A Stoic, of all people, undone by his own laughter. But the fact that ancient writers reached for, laughed himself to death, as a believable cause of death tells you something important. This wasn't considered an absurd idea to them. It wasn't a joke about a joke. It was considered a real, if rare, way for a body to fail, plausible enough to write down as history rather than legend. And it kept showing up, centuries apart, in places that had no contact with each other. Medieval European accounts describe King Martin of Aragon collapsing after a laughing fit, triggered by a mix of heavy overeating and a crude joke from his court jester. Closer to the modern era, isolated case reports in medical journals describe elderly patients, often with existing heart conditions, who died during or immediately after extended laughing episodes at parties or family gatherings. Different centuries. Different continents. Different causes underneath. But the same surface pattern, again and again. Laughter, in the wrong body, at the wrong moment, can be dangerous. Why would a society in ancient Greece and a society in medieval Spain independently land on the same strange idea? Probably because they'd all witnessed some version of it firsthand. Someone laughing themselves into a coughing fit. Someone going pale and light-headed mid-laugh. Someone collapsing, even briefly, at the height of a joke. The body's reaction was visible enough, and unsettling enough, that it got remembered, retold, and eventually written down as cautionary fact. Now here's the twist that changes how you should think about laughter altogether. You probably assume laughter exists because of jokes. Funny things happen, your brain processes the humor, and laughter is the result. That feels obvious. It's also, according to the people who study laughter scientifically, mostly wrong. Psychologist Robert Provini spent years recording thousands of instances of natural laughter in public, just listening to how and when people actually laugh in everyday life, using hidden recorders in malls and on sidewalks rather than in a lab. What he found surprised even him. The overwhelming majority of laughter has nothing to do with jokes at all. People laugh after completely ordinary statements like, "I'll see you guys later," or "It's right here." They laugh to fill silence, to signal agreement, to soften a transition in conversation, to show someone they're on the same side. Laughter, it turns out, is far less about comedy and far more about connection. It's a social signal first, and a response to humor second, almost an afterthought by comparison. Neuroscientist Sophie Scott has pushed that idea even further. Her research into the brain's response to laughter suggests it likely evolved long before language did, as a way for early humans to bond, to signal safety, to synchronize a group emotionally without needing a single word. Laughter is contagious for a reason. Hearing someone else laugh activates regions in your own brain associated with the physical act of laughing, almost like your body wants to join in before you've even consciously decided to. You don't have to find the original thing funny. You just have to hear someone else's laughter, and your own laughing machinery starts revving up in response. So laughter isn't a polite little response to comedy. It's closer to a deeply wired survival behavior, something nearer to crying or yawning than to a punchline. It spreads from person to person almost like a contagious yawn does. It synchronizes groups, locking strangers into the same emotional rhythm within seconds. And once it starts, it can be remarkably hard to stop, because stopping was never really the point of it in the first place. Bonding was. That helps explain one of the strangest documented events in the history of laughter. In January of 1962, in a school in what was then called Tanganyika, now part of Tanzania, a handful of students began laughing uncontrollably. It wasn't triggered by a joke. There wasn't one. The laughter simply started, then spread from student to student, then from that school to nearby schools, then to entire villages. Some people reportedly laughed for hours at a time. A few accounts describe laughing fits lasting days, accompanied by crying, rashes, and fainting once the laughter finally exhausted them. Schools were forced to shut down for weeks. The episode eventually faded out months later, almost as mysteriously as it began, with no clear single trigger ever pinned down. Researchers studying the event afterward concluded it was likely a case of mass psychogenic illness, sometimes called mass hysteria, a phenomenon where psychological stress expresses itself through real, physical symptoms that then spread through a group. Not laughter caused by something funny at all, but tension and anxiety, in a region under significant social pressure at the time, expressing itself through the body, then spreading through a tight-knit community the same way laughter naturally spreads between people who trust each other. It borrowed the contagious machinery of normal laughter and ran it without anything humorous behind it at all. Put those two things together. The Tanganyika case and the rare syncope deaths. They point to the same underlying truth. Laughter was never just a response to comedy. It's a powerful, involuntary, highly contagious physical event that your body performs almost on autopilot once it starts. Most of the time, that system works exactly as it should. It bonds you to the people around you. It releases tension. It feels good precisely because it's wired into some of the oldest social circuitry your brain has. But every now and then, in a body with a hidden vulnerability, that same ancient circuitry pushes just slightly too far. The chest pressure climbs a little too high. The heart skips one beat too many. And a moment built for connection becomes, for a vanishingly small number of people, the last moment they experience at all. It's worth sitting with how strange that really is. The exact same biological process that makes you feel closer to your friends at a dinner table, the one that makes a stranger's laugh make you smile before you even know what they're laughing at, is mechanically identical to the process that has, in rare documented cases throughout history, stopped a heart. There isn't a separate, dangerous kind of laughter and a separate, safe kind. It's the same system, running at different intensities, inside bodies with different hidden weaknesses. Most bodies absorb that intensity without issue. A few, quietly, cannot. So the next time you're laughing so hard you can't breathe, so hard your stomach aches and your eyes water and you genuinely struggle to get a full sentence out, you're not just enjoying a joke. You're running one of the oldest, most deeply social programs your body has, the same one that bonded small groups of early humans around a fire long before anyone had a word for funny. For almost everyone, it will pass in seconds, leaving nothing behind but a good memory and sore abs. You'll catch your breath. You'll wipe your eyes. You'll move on with your day. But somewhere in the long, strange history of human laughter, a few people really did mean it, literally, when they said the same thing you just said. Stop. I'm going to die.